Hello, everybody. Welcome to The Route to Success. We're here today with Michael J. Langley, who brings lived experience and unshakable resolve to the conversation on hope, grit, and resilience. Growing up in a hostile environment shaped his beliefs that real change begins with small, persistent actions. I will say that is definitely my belief as well. I think those small actions really add up. Now an advocate for marginalized communities, Michael channels that early lesson into a lifelong commitment to building stronger and more vibrant communities. Michael, welcome. I am so excited for this conversation because of all the things I just said about you in the previous conversation that we have. You hit on so many things that are so important to me. So, welcome.
Sarah, thank you so much for that introduction. I truly appreciate the kind words.
Well, they're genuine. All right, so let's jump right in. So you described growing up in a challenging neighborhood. How did those early experiences shape your view of resilience and leadership?
I certainly appreciate that question. And listen, this hits close to home because I have family members alive today who attended segregated schools, for
Oh
example.
my gosh.
And unfortunately, too often our zip code plays an outsized role in your upward mobility. And I grew
Mhm.
up in one of the poorest counties in rural Virginia. And some of my earliest memories revolve around a neighbor flying a Confederate flag in their yard, mere houses down from me. It's actually still there to this day. But because of that tension, I knew changing hearts and minds in other communities would be a tall order. And so I think we do that by showing our work, and I've had to learn that. And over the years, I've developed a passion for reimagining and changing systems. But the most savvy leaders that I know, that proportionate representation, access to resources that meets one's needs, and a recognition of all viewpoints consistently are the hallmarks of the most vibrant communities.
Mhm.
So ultimately, the goal is to evolve from a fixed mindset to more of a growth one.
Yes. So if this was in writing, I would ask you to put growth mindset in all capitals, bolded and underlined, because I think that is the key to moving forward. I love how you said reimagining things. That's one of my favorite things to do when I walk my dogs is reimagine how could something be better? How could we make this be better? And I will just, because you brought this up, I will share a personal experience I got to have. You said you had family members who went to segregated schools. Years and years ago, I got to write profile pieces for a local magazine, and I was so honored. I got to write the profile piece on the gentleman who desegregated the schools in Lawton, Oklahoma, and hear his story and tell his story. And what was really cool is he was a descendant of Buffalo soldiers. I'm not sure if you know who they are. That's a whole other side conversation, but it was so humbling to stand in the presence of such, I don't know how to say other than courageous man to do the right thing in such a challenging time. I was so humbled, and that memory sticks with me forever.
I love it. I love it.
So,
Yes, that's so important.
yeah. So, anyways, I went rogue. I apologize. I'll go back focus. So this one I'm curious because I would love to learn from you. What personal habits or mindsets help you maintain hope while advocating for communities facing systematic barriers?
You know, it's interesting. I just mentioned where I grew up, and I've actually been civically minded since I was young. And that legacy of service, it started when I began marching in grade school with my local NAACP to the courthouse with the oldest continuous records in the United States. I come from a family of public servants, whether it's military or public health. We really know what it's like to invest in community. And so over the years, I've actually had the opportunity to connect with civil rights champions like the late Muhammad Ali
Oh
and
my
Dr.
gosh.
West. And I've had the honor of marching more recently with Dr. King's eldest son, his daughter-in-law, and his teenage granddaughter in defense of things like voting rights. And so
Mhm.
really pulling from those unique experiences motivates my why for continuing to carry on the work of those who do not really have a voice. I think that's an important piece to try and uphold the legacy of those people who came before you.
That is so beautiful what you just said. And the people you've gotten to meet, oh my gosh, I am in awe of you. That is incredible. They're such, I'm sorry, I hope this doesn't offend you, but I would say they're such rock stars, right? They're superstars with the bravery and the work that they do every day. And I love that you said, give somebody a voice, which leads me to my next question. Um, you said that everyone deserves an advocate. What does that principle look like in action in your daily work?
Yeah, that's another excellent question. And we view our work as both moral and economic imperatives. So closing the opportunity gap is important to me and our organization. That's why we're really diligent about the public interest work that we do. And we do this by preserving human rights for those who have had contact with the justice system, but also empowering vulnerable populations experiencing homelessness and poverty, and providing dignity for people with disabilities. So for us, access to justice requires meeting people where they are, no matter who they are, where they're from, what they believe, or how they may have gotten there. For example, access drives change and creates stability for unhoused populations. Access to food security, access to employment with a living wage, access to affordable housing, access to quality education, access to reliable transportation, access to safe environments, et cetera. And communities really can't realize their full potential if not everyone thrives. And that's precisely why we work to provide an opportunity for vulnerable Floridians to pursue self-determination without being punished for their identity, their preferences, or their circumstances.
I think what you said is so powerful and so important because until I started working in the social services arena 20 years ago, there was so much I didn't know. And what the way it was so eye-opening, what has really made me want to become a storyteller and share these stories is because you don't know what you don't know. And I have found that so many times your average person truly has no idea the challenges that their neighbor or the homeless person on the corner has. And when you can educate them on the faces, the humanity to that, and help them understand 9 times out of 10, probably 9.9 times out of 10, it was circumstantial that got them there, not by choice. So I think that what you're doing is powerful because you're giving a voice to the people who are so often, I don't know how to say it other than not seen, right? And
Yes.
it's, I think the best gift you can give to anybody is to see them or hear them.
Yes, and as we approach the Thanksgiving holiday, I just want to hold space for those folks who are struggling to
Right.
provide meals for their families. As someone who came from a very similar background, who needed some assistance, even with both parents working multiple jobs to try and make ends meet. I know how challenging it is, and I just want to hold space for those individuals currently.
Agreed. Agreed. So in your job, I'm sure that you have days in your life. You have days where you just see a lot of things that aren't pretty. I always say the ugliness of life. How do you, after you've battled that all day, maybe even feeling a little beaten down, how do you restore your own sense of purpose after confronting discouraging or painful situations?
Yeah, and I think again this is a very important topic to cover. And so when I first became the chief executive of Florida Justice Institute, I discovered three major challenges that I needed to handle before I could even focus on my intended responsibilities, and I was unaware that they even existed before I came aboard. And I could have shied away from them, but I knew helping to find practical solutions would serve the organization well eventually. And so, although they are similar concepts, I think the important thing is authenticity or intentionality. It's really about showing up. And that's what I think about when I reflect on the concept of leadership, presence, as an example, not just that you show up, but how you show up.
Sure.
And I think
Mhm.
that's why public interest work is so critical, not only on the good days, but during the not so good days. But, how do you do that during even unpopular times, as an example? And so, in short, we don't care how the winds of public opinion blow. We only care about what's in the public's best interest. And it's critically important because, as you alluded to, some vicarious trauma can happen because we work with communities who are already so vulnerable. And so I always tell the team that we really can't take care of the community until we take care of ourselves. And it's so important having that self-care routine in there, whether it's mindfulness exercises with meditation, or maybe just a team building exercise where you're and sort of sharing the experience with the rest of the staff that are experiencing some of the same challenges. And so those things are really important. We try to make sure that when folks are off, they are off and disconnected and not checking emails or texting in and those sort of things. But I think it's really critical that we recognize the humanity of each other and our teams in order for us to overcome some of those issues.
I agree. Self-care is something I didn't understand until I hit burnout, but self-care is vital. And what always I say to myself is, I don't like the airplane metaphor. I don't like that one. I like the metaphor where you can't pour from an empty cup. And so I love finding the activities and the exercises that fill my cup so that I can then fill others. But it's so correct what you're saying. So this is one that I would love if you could give some, especially considering the situation of our country. I'm trying to be very unpolitical, very neutral. What are practical steps that individuals can take to support marginalized communities? And how can they do that without feeling overwhelmed or helpless? Hopeless, not helpless, hopeless.
Well, they may feel helpless as well. And so I certainly don't want to discount that. But at the end of the day, there are generally three methods for communities to enable change for important causes. And many of your listeners may have likely even heard of the colloquial use of time, talent, and treasure, where one can either devote time to a cause by volunteering or serving in the community, maybe even use their talent to run for office or seek appointment to local boards or commissions that provide input to the direction of your community, but also investing in organizations like an FJI that work daily on addressing systemic issues. But I'd like to offer two more T's in this equation, if you will, ties and testimony. So providing introductions to people in your network for key change makers, and share why particular issues matter to you and how addressing them benefits the greater good, I think are also very important. But just to know, you don't have to do everything, but it's important for people to find their own niche.
I agree with you. What I've worked on when I've worked with nonprofits when I was a CEO, and now when I work with nonprofits, I always tell them, and what I tell boards is that you want to have a diverse board, those that can connect, like you said, those that will volunteer, but it never hurts to have one or two who aren't afraid to donate, because everybody has their role to play. And if your role is to fund initiatives and to fund programming, that is a truly valuable and blessed role to have. That is, I think, at times just as important, if not more so, than the ones who can volunteer their time. Because unfortunately, we can't do our work without money. And so you've got to get that. And I loved how you said that. And I love how you pointed out the value of connections. I always, when I meet somebody, am thinking in my head, who can I introduce them to? Who can I connect them to? How can I get this moving farther? And it may take me 6 months to come up with a list, but I'll circle back. I won't be embarrassed. And I'll say, hey, Michael, I met so-and-so, and I think that you guys would really have a great conversation together along these lines. I'm just going to step out and watch beautiful things happen. Something I do also want to point out, and I would love to hear your opinion on this, is just what I always remind people is those in public office technically work for us. We pay their salary. So please reach out, please call, please email, because I learned, and I'm ashamed to say I didn't learn this until about 6 months ago, every call and every email is documented in their office and it influences them. And that was something I didn't know.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. All those, um, campaigns, whether you are issue-based campaign or um, supporting a particular candidate or another, they do track this, and this is how the change happens, right? If
Mhm.
enough folks let their voice be heard, then you can have a transformative change. And so I think that's critically important for folks to get involved in their own way.
Agreed. And always find how you're most comfortable because then that's when you'll be at your best, right? Um, how have moments of failure or setback contributed to your understanding of grit?
Yeah, I can give you too many examples
Me too.
of that, and not to date myself, but when I got my executive MBA, we learned about the concept of what's called VUCA times. So volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Now we've entered sort of this new realm, and I think we're experiencing what's called BANI times, BANI. So brittle systems, anxious
Mhm.
people, nonlinear activities, and incomprehensible trends. All of these things coming together and sort of this cocktail of uncertainty and trepidation, if you will. I think, though, this is why courage matters, to focus on what's important when external forces try to derail your work. So focusing on those things that you can control. And so at the end of the day, what I've had to learn is that leadership is advocacy, whether that's for your own team, for your organization, for your community, but I think more importantly, for your values. I think that's really what true grit means.
Yeah. I always think of the John Wayne quote, being scared is, no, being courageous is being scared to death, but getting in the saddle anyways. And I know there have been so many times as a leader that I've been shaking because I've had to advocate for my team or advocate for something and I'm so scared. But I always tell myself I can do this. And facing that fear head on results in such beauty. And you first you're like, oh, I did this. This is really good. I can do this again next time, right? But it always results in positive change. And I think with the kind of work that both of us do, seeing those moments of positive change is by far the best reward that we could ever get. The smile on somebody's face who hasn't smiled in forever, helping an the house person find a house. Those are those moments that make everything worth it.
Yes.
So, big question, big question, kind of putting the pressure on you. What
I'm ready.
advice, you ready? Okay, good. What advice would you give to listeners who want to make positive change but don't know where to begin?
Yeah. Well, we all have to start somewhere, right? The first thing that I would say is, don't be nervous about it, right? Because we all have our different levels of knowledge and understanding, and in order for us to get to a sort of a different plane, again, we have to start on a path somewhere. I think what's really important is engaging differences constructively matters. I recommend starting with
Mm.
identifying the issues where you have the most common ground with someone. And, the saying goes, everyone is entitled to their own opinions, just not their own facts. But when the discussion begins, I think having empathy and humility should add credibility to the dialogue. One thing that every one of us can do is do information gathering. I think it's a great way to start. We all have supercomputers in our pockets
Mhm.
nowadays that can help channel our natural curiosities into something more positive. I think, but also though, this can't just be a fad. So we need to take this seriously. I think this commitment to excellence is more than just statements or social media posts. I think it's a consistent investment. You have to celebrate those small wins accordingly, but it must be more than just sort of a one-time engagement, and find alignment with people and entities that understand the interconnectedness of each issue. Um, they're often known as social determinants. Things like education, housing, healthcare, criminal legal reform, and economic advancement are good examples of that. And so that means, taking that all together, we leverage data, public-private partnerships, and at the tail end, the law, so that the business community can activate resources, the government can enable smarter policies, social enterprise can catalyze transformative progress, and I would also include faith leaders. They can change hearts and minds. And so read, lead, and act turns into engage, educate, engage, and advocate.
And I would just like to add that no action is too small. It's okay to do the small little things and start small, and it'll cause that ripple effect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah.
Michael, if it's not an inconvenience, I would love for you to just give your 3-minute elevator speech about your organization and how people can learn more about your organization and support you, either by volunteering or advocating or financially. I don't mind saying it because I don't work for you, so I can advocate for financial donations for you. But if you wouldn't mind just giving that elevator speech, I think that could really be helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and again, thank you for that, Sara. So I'm the executive director of Florida Justice Institute. And since 1978, we've worked to provide access to justice to the most disenfranchised residents and underinvested communities throughout the state of Florida. And we do that through impact litigation and advocacy, empowering people who have had contact with the justice system, as well as those who find themselves housing insecure. But more recently, trying to make sure that we provide dignity for people with disabilities. And so in order for us to do that, being an award-winning nonprofit public interest firm, we don't take any funding from the government. We certainly try to make us much more responsive to the people that we serve. We take every single zip code throughout Florida. And so as big as Florida is, and with a team of 10, it's really important that we find support for people who believe in us, believe in this work. And we do that through multiple channels. But at the end of the day, your listeners can certainly visit fjI.law to find out more about our work. And if you are anywhere in the country, you don't have to live here in Florida. You can also participate in our upcoming Give Miami Day campaign by visiting givemiamiday.org and finding Florida Justice Institute's page. Early giving starts this Saturday, November 15th, and will last up until next Thursday, November 20th. So no amount is too small. It can help us fund the transformative change that we need. We were able to get a law passed this past session that will help get individuals that are suffering from mental health challenges the support and the resources that they need instead of being incarcerated and criminalized for that. And so what we do matters, and we can certainly use the support from your listeners and the broader community.
So let me just wrap up by saying the work that Michael does is vital to the community. I have not ever worked in the sphere of nonprofits that you worked in. I've worked more direct programming, and I have seen the results and had to try to repair the results from marginalized people who weren't heard, who weren't seen, who didn't have housing. I've had to try to find a house for a woman who was losing her disability. And without resources like Michael, the work that I did was almost impossible. And I just want to kind of put a picture on it that it may seem very large and theoretical, but it is not. It is very practical. It is very hands-on. It is very day-to-day. His firm could literally, his organization, let me say it that way, could quite literally be helping your neighbor. or could be passing a law that would help your grandparents. And so please take this very seriously. I hope that none of you are ever in a position to see some of the things I've seen. I'm sure, Michael, you and I could share our stories. And this is why I value the work that you do so much. I'm not eloquent or have the graces to do the political work. Unfortunately, I don't have a poker face, so everything shows on my face. But I like direct programming. I like the dirty work, so to speak. I love meeting people and hearing their stories. So if you hear this and you feel led to invest, remember that it's not an investment in one community. It's truly an investment in the entire nation, because as each community gets better, it's a trickle effect. It's contagious. So I hope that I summed that up very well. I hope I didn't put any words on your plate. I just wanted to say how much your work means to me because of previous work that I've done. And I have felt the effects of not having someone like you in that work. And so thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your elevator pitch. And Miami Gives Days, let me say that correctly, is coming up. And I have never personally got to go to that event, but I've known people who have gotten to go to it. It's going to be absolutely great. I've heard great things this year. Ironically, my RV repairman has a spouse who is involved in that. And I heard really great things from him about all the money they've raised this year. So let me just put that out. It's interesting, the conversations you have and the connections, right? He's fixing my leaky roof on my RV. I learned more about my own gifts. So let me just plant that seed. They're doing really well raising money this year is what he told me. So I hope that your day is wildly successful. I hope it's exhausting from all the positive, affirmations and things that you get. And if there's anything I can ever do, Michael, please don't ever hesitate to reach out. And if you ever just need somebody to say something positive, please know I'm right here and I would love to cheer you on in your work.
Well, Sara, again, thank you so much for the invitation to speak with you today. All the kind words of support. We truly appreciate it. And you're right. Being able to have this conversation with you is just an opportunity to amplify our work, and it's so critically important for folks that are struggling, because we all need some assistance at one time or another, and we just want to make sure that we are bringing voice to those who have been voiceless for so long. And so thank you for this conversation and your time.
Of course. Thank you, Michael, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Take care.